Jin stared through the viewport as the transport ship approached Sunspire Academy. The massive structure stretched from the upper atmosphere of the gas giant Helios all the way into low orbit. It looked like a giant needle piercing the swirling clouds of the planet below. "First time seeing it?" asked the transport pilot, a six-limbed being with green skin. Everyone gets that look on their face. Jin nodded, unable to find words. After 3 months of space travel from Earth, he had finally arrived at the most famous school in the galaxy. Only the best students from each species got to study here. Jin was just the third human ever to be accepted. "We'll dock in 10 minutes," said the pilot. "Get your bags ready." Jin checked his small bag. He didn't bring much from Earth. The Academy would provide everything he needed. As the ship moved closer, Jin could see the different sections of Sunspire. Some parts looked like they were filled with water. Others glowed with strange lights. Each section was built for the different alien species that studied there. The ship docked with a soft bump. Jin took a deep breath and walked to the exit. The door opened to a large, bright room. About 20 aliens of different shapes and sizes stood waiting. A tall, thin being with blue skin and 4 eyes stepped forward. "Welcome to Sunspire Academy. I am Administrator Lono. You must be Jin, our new human student." "Yes, sir," Jin said, trying to stand tall. "Follow me. I will take you to your room. Your roommate is waiting." Jin followed Administrator Lono through wide hallways. The ceilings were very high, and the walls changed colors as they walked. Other aliens passed by, some floating, some crawling, some walking on many legs. They all stared at Jin. "Why are they looking at me like that?" Jin whispered. "You are only the third human to come here," Lono said. "Most species are curious about Deathworlders." "Deathworlders?" Jin asked. "That is what they call humans. Your planet Earth is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, the highest and most dangerous classification we have." Jin was surprised. Earth seemed normal to him. They stopped at a door marked with strange symbols and English letters that spelled human quarters. "Your roommate will explain everything else," Lono said. "Classes begin tomorrow." The door slid open, and Jin entered a room that looked almost like a college dorm on Earth. A young man with black hair sat on one of the beds, reading from a glowing tablet. "You must be Jin," the young man said, standing up with a smile. "I'm Tahoe. I've been here for a year already." Jin put down his bag and shook Tahoe's hand. It felt good to see another human after months of travel. "Nice to meet you," Jin said. The administrator called humans Deathworlders. "What does that mean?" Tahoe laughed. "Oh, you have a lot to learn. Sit down." Jin sat on the empty bed across from Tahoe. Most alien species in the Galactic Confederation come from what they call garden worlds. Nice, safe planets with mild weather, low gravity, and no dangerous animals. Most of them evolved on worlds rated Class 3 or below. "And Earth is a Class 12? Jin asked. "Exactly," Tahoe said. "To them, Earth is a nightmare. High gravity, extreme temperatures, dangerous predators, natural disasters, and diseases everywhere. They can't believe anything could evolve intelligence in such a place." Jin thought about this. "Is that why they look at me like I might bite them?" "That's part of it," Tahoe said. "But there's more. They also call us the Immortal Deathworlders." "Immortal? We don't live forever." "No, but compared to them, we might as well be immortal," Tahoe explained. "What we consider a small injury would kill most aliens. We heal fast. We can survive things that would instantly kill them. And we keep going even when badly hurt." Jin remembered cutting his finger while cooking last week. It had stopped bleeding in minutes. "That's just normal biology." "Not for them," Tahoe said. "You'll see tomorrow in class. Just be prepared for them to be both scared of you and fascinated by you." The next morning, Jin followed Tahoe to their first class, comparative biology. The classroom had different kinds of seats for the various alien body types. Jin and Taeho sat in the human section, which looked like regular chairs but with stronger supports for Earth's gravity. The professor was a floating jellyfish-like creature who spoke through a translator device. Today we welcome a new human student. Jin, please stand so everyone can see you. Jin stood awkwardly as 30 alien students turned to look at him. As you know, humans come from Earth, a Class 12 death world. In today's class, we will compare standard biological responses across species. The professor floated over to a table with various instruments. We will measure reaction to small stimuli. Jin, would you volunteer first? Jin walked to the front of the class. The professor handed him a small device. This will produce a mild electric shock. Please press the button. Jin pressed it and felt a small zap, like touching a doorknob after walking on carpet. He barely reacted. The classroom erupted in whispers. That stimulus would cause most species considerable pain. The professor explained. Notice the human's minimal reaction. Throughout the day, Jin noticed the other students kept their distance. During lunch in the main hall, he and Taeho sat alone until a four-armed amphibian cautiously approached their table. May I join you? She asked in slightly accented English. Of course, Jin said. I'm Jin, and this is Taeho. I am Sua, she said, sitting down with her tray of what looked like glowing algae. I am studying xenoengineering. Your species fascinates me. Why? Jin asked. You walked through the south corridor to get here, yes? Sua asked. Jin nodded. It was the fastest way. Sua's large eyes blinked rapidly. The south corridor has atmospheric settings that would be uncomfortable for most species. The gravity is 15% higher, and the air has trace amounts of carbon dioxide that would make my kind dizzy. I didn't even notice, Jin admitted. Exactly, Sua said, her voice excited. That is why everyone is watching you. As if on cue, Jin realized many aliens in the dining hall were stealing glances at their table. That afternoon in the laboratory class, students worked in pairs on chemical analysis. Jin was paired with a crystalline being named Jian, who moved slowly and deliberately. We must be very careful with these compounds, Jian said in a musical voice. The acidic solution can cause severe damage. Jin nodded and began handling the equipment. When he reached for a vial, his hand slipped, and he accidentally spilled a few drops of the acid on his skin. Medical emergency, Jian cried out, backing away quickly. Jin quickly wiped the acid off with a neutralizing cloth. His skin was red where the drops had landed, but he felt only a mild sting. It's okay, Jin said. Just a small burn. The professor rushed over, all 6 of her legs moving quickly. Are you injured, human Jin? No, I'm fine, Jin said, showing his hand. See, just a little red. The professor examined his hand with a scanner. Remarkable. That solution would have dissolved the tissue of most species down to the bone. You have a minor first-degree burn that's already healing. The entire class had stopped to watch this exchange. Jin noticed their expressions ranged from horror to fascination. Later that evening, back in their room, Jin told Taeho about what happened. You'll get used to it, Taeho said. Last semester, I fell down some stairs and broke my arm. I just went to the medical bay, got it set, and went back to class. The other students thought I should have been hospitalized for weeks. Is that why they call us immortal? Jin asked. Partly, Taeho said, but there's more to it. They've been watching humans since we joined the Confederation 5 years ago. They've seen videos of our soldiers, our athletes, our emergency workers. They've seen humans run into burning buildings, survive in extreme environments, and recover from injuries that would be fatal to them. Jin thought about this. So we're basically space orcs to them. Taeho laughed. Pretty much, but they're starting to see our value too. That's why they're letting more humans into the academy now. A soft chime sounded from the door. Jin opened it to find Suha and Jan standing there. "We wanted to check if you were truly unharmed," Suha said, her forearms moving in what seemed like a nervous gesture. "I'm fine," Jin assured them. "Would you like to come in?" The two aliens cautiously entered the room. "We also wondered if you would join our study group," Giant said, crystal body glinting in the light. "Your perspectives would be valuable." Jin smiled. "I'd like that." As they began to talk, Jin realized that coming to Sunspire Academy would teach him as much about being human as it would about aliens. In the vast galaxy full of different life forms, humans were the strange ones, the mysterious immortal Deathworlders who had evolved on a planet that most species considered hell. And he was just beginning to understand why. 2 weeks passed at Sunspire Academy. Jin was starting to get used to the strange looks from other students. His study group with Taho, Suha, and Jen met 3 times a week in the central library. They sat at a special table that could adjust to the needs of different species. "Today we will learn about the human healing process," said Professor Molo, a tall insect-like being who taught xenobiology. "Our human students have agreed to share their medical records." Jin felt uncomfortable as his childhood medical history appeared on the big screen. There were pictures of a broken arm he got when he was 8, a deep cut on his leg from a bike accident at 10, and a concussion from a sports game when he was 15. "Notice," said Professor Molo, pointing with one of his 4 arms, "how the human bone completely regrew after breaking. Most species would need artificial replacements." Suha raised a webbed hand. "How much pain did you feel during these injuries?" Jin thought about it. The broken arm hurt a lot at first, but after they put the cast on, it was just annoying. "I was playing again in a few days, though I had to be careful." The classroom filled with murmurs of surprise. For context, Professor Molo explained, a similar break would leave most academy students in pain management for weeks, with complete rest required. After class, Jin and Taeho walked to the dining hall with Suha and Jinan. "I do not understand how you can be so casual about these injuries," Giant said, crystal body glinting as they moved. "My kind would crack permanently from such damage." "It's just how we're built," Taho said. "Earth is tough. We had to be tougher to survive there." "Tell us more about Earth," Suha asked as they sat down with their food. "What is it like to live on a death world?" Jin took a bite of his meal, which was designed to match Earth food, but didn't taste quite right. "It's just normal to us. We have oceans, mountains, deserts, forests. We have seasons and weather. But your weather can kill you, right?" Suha pressed. "I've read about your hurricanes and blizzards." "Well, yes," Jin admitted. "We have storms that can be dangerous. And earthquakes sometimes. And a few active volcanoes. And yet you build cities near these volcanoes?" Jan asked, sounding shocked. "The soil is really good for farming," Taho explained. The aliens looked at each other in disbelief. "What about your activities?" Suha asked. "What do young humans do for fun?" Jin thought about his life back on Earth. Sports, video games, hiking, swimming. Normal stuff. "Show them," Taho said, taking out his tablet. "I have videos from home." He played a clip of a mountain biking competition. Riders in helmets raced down steep, rocky trails, sometimes falling and getting back up, sometimes flying through the air on jumps. "This is fun?" John asked, their crystalline form vibrating with what seemed like anxiety. "Very fun," Jin said, smiling. "I used to race like this back home." "What happens when you fall?" Suha asked. Jin shrugged. "You get bruises, sometimes cut yourself, might break a bone if you're unlucky. Then you heal and do it again." Their alien friends stared at them in silent amazement. That night, a message appeared on the Academy announcement system. "Annual survival exercise will begin in 2 weeks. All students must form mixed species teams of 4 to 6 members. Sign up in the main hall." "What's the survival exercise?" Jin asked Tao. It's a big test they do every year. They send teams to an uninhabited moon called Nixia for 3 weeks. We have to survive in different environments with limited supplies. It's supposed to teach cooperation between species. Sounds interesting, Jin said. Should we sign up with Suva and Jian? Definitely, Tahoe said. They're smart, and we're tough. Good combination. The next day, they asked Suha and Jian to join their team. I am not sure, Jian said, body dimming slightly. The environments on Nixia can be very challenging. The gravity shifts, the air is thin, and the temperature changes rapidly. That's why you need us, Tahoe said. Jin and I can handle the physical challenges, and you two can handle the technical problems. It would be valuable research to work with humans in a survival situation. Sua admitted. I will join. If Sua goes, I will go too, Jan decided. They registered their team at the main hall. As they finished, a group of tall, predatory-looking aliens approached them. Their leader had dark red scales and sharp teeth that showed when he spoke. So the Deathworlders are joining the exercise this year, he said. His translator made his voice sound deep and rough. I am Doran. My team has won 3 years in a row. Good for you, Tahoe said calmly. We're just going to do our best. Doran looked down at them. Before the exercise, there is a traditional competition. My team challenges yours, tomorrow at the physical training center. Before Jin could respond, Tahoe nodded. We accept. As Doran and his team walked away, Jin turned to Tahoe. Why did you agree? They look like they could tear us apart. Trust me, Tahoe said. This is where being a Deathworlder comes in handy. The next day, many students gathered at the training center to watch the competition. The challenge had 4 parts: strength, speed, endurance, and problem solving. For the strength test, each team had to move heavy blocks from one side of a room to another. Doran's team, with their powerful bodies, finished quickly. But Jin and Tahoe surprised everyone by matching their time. The high gravity of Earth had made humans stronger than they looked. How did you do that? Sua asked, her 4 arms waving in excitement. Earth gravity is 1.5 times stronger than standard Confederation gravity, Jin explained. We're used to things being heavier. The speed test involved running a complicated course. Again, Doran's team was fast, but Jin and Tahoe kept up. Suha moved well in the water sections, and Jan floated effortlessly through low-gravity areas. During the endurance test, teams had to hold stress positions while environmental conditions changed around them. The room became very hot, then very cold. The air thinned, and the gravity increased. Halfway through, Tahoe slipped and hit his arm against a metal bar. There was a loud crack. Tahoe is injured. Sua called out. We need to stop. I'm fine, Tahoe said, though his face showed pain. Let's keep going. But your arm, Jin started. Just broken, Tahoe said quietly. Not a big deal. We can't lose to these guys. Jin knew they should stop, but he also understood Tahoe's pride. They continued the test, finishing just behind Doran's team. In the medical bay afterward, the doctor scanned Tahoe's arm. Clean break of the radius, the doctor said. I've set it and applied a healing field. For a human, it should be stable in about 3 days, though full healing will take weeks. Doran and his team came to the medical bay. The alien leader looked at Tahoe with new eyes. You continued with a broken bone, he said, sounding almost respectful. My kind would have been completely disabled by such an injury. Like I said, not a big deal for us, Tahoe replied. The final scores show our teams tied. Doran said, this has never happened before. I look forward to the real competition on Nixia. After they left, Suha and Jen stared at Tahoe. I have studied human biology, Suha said, but seeing it is different. You truly do not fear injury. We fear it, Jin explained. We just work through it. On Earth, you have to keep going even when you're hurt. Giving up could mean death. Is that why they call you immortal? John asked. Not because you cannot die, but because you refuse to stop even when you should. Jin had never thought about it that way. Maybe that's exactly it. That night, as Tahoe slept with his healing arm, Jin looked out the window at the stars. In just 1 month at Sunspire Academy, he had learned more about being human than in his whole life on Earth. Things he took for granted: healing quickly, enduring pain, adapting to different environments, were superpowers to other species. The survival exercise would be their biggest test yet. Jin wondered how their alien friends would react when they saw what humans could really do when pushed to their limits. Immortal Deathworlders, he whispered to himself. For the first time, the name felt like a badge of honor rather than a strange label. He was beginning to understand why the galaxy viewed humans with such awe and fear. And soon, on the harsh surface of Nixia, they would learn even more. The day of the survival exercise arrived. 20 teams gathered in the Academy's main hangar, each wearing special suits designed for Nixia's harsh environment. Jin checked his team's supplies one last time. They had basic tools, emergency rations, a shelter kit, and communication devices. Remember, Administrator Lono told the students, this exercise is difficult but safe. Each team has an emergency beacon. If you face real danger, use it, and a rescue ship will come. Your goal is to survive for 3 weeks and reach the extraction point. Jin looked at his teammates. Taiho's arm was still healing but functional. Sua seemed nervous, her 4 arms fidgeting with her equipment. John's crystalline body glowed softly, a sign of calm focus. We'll be fine, Jin assured them. We trained well. The teams boarded separate transport ships. As they flew toward Nixia, Jin watched the moon grow larger through the viewport. It was a strange world of black rocks, red dust, and occasional patches of alien vegetation. Your team will be dropped in Sector 7, the pilot told them. It's a volcanic region with thermal vents and acid pools. Very challenging terrain. Why did we get such a hard area? Sua asked. The pilot's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. Teams with Deathworlders always get the most difficult sectors. It's only fair. Their ship landed on a flat rock plateau. As the door opened, hot air rushed in. The sky above was dark purple, with Helios looming large on the horizon. Good luck, the pilot said. See you in 3 weeks. The 4 teammates stepped onto Nixia's surface. The gravity was slightly lighter than standard Confederation settings, which made Jin feel bouncy when he walked. First task is to find shelter before night, Tahoe said. Temperatures drop very low after dark. They hiked for 2 hours, mapping the area and looking for a safe place to set up their base. John floated slightly above the ground, their crystalline bodies serving as a natural compass by reflecting the magnetic field. There, Sua pointed with 2 of her arms. That cave in the cliff wall looked stable. They climbed toward the cave, carefully testing each step on the loose rocks. Inside, they found a dry, protected space large enough for all of them. Good spot, Jin said. Let's set up the shelter kit and... A loud rumbling interrupted him. The ground shook violently. Earthquake? Tahoe asked, bracing himself against the wall. No, Jan said, body flashing with alarmed colors. Solar flare. A massive one. It's disrupting the moon's magnetic field. Their communication device crackled to life. Administrator Lono's voice came through, broken by static. Attention all teams. Unexpected solar storm. Communication systems damage. Extraction delayed. Minimum 10 days. Conserve supplies. Stay safe. The message cut off. Jin tried to reconnect but couldn't get a signal. So we're really stranded now, he said. What does this mean? Sua asked, her large eyes blinking rapidly. It means this isn't just an exercise anymore, Tahoe said. We really need to survive on our own until they can come get us. They set up their shelter inside the cave and organized their supplies. Their rations would last 2 weeks if they were careful. Their water filters could process the acidic liquid from nearby pools, making it safe to drink. For the first few days, they explored their surroundings, mapped safe paths, and established routines. Jin and Teo took turns standing guard at night, while Suha and Jen studied the local plant life for possible food sources. On the 5th day, Suha discovered a patch of blue fern-like plants near a thermal vent. "These might be edible," she said, carefully collecting samples. "Similar species grow on my homeworld." As she reached for a larger specimen, the ground beneath her cracked. A pocket of gas escaped, surrounding her in yellowish clouds. Suha collapsed, gasping. "Toxic gas," Jian shouted, floating backward. "We cannot touch her. The gas clings to organic matter." Jin didn't hesitate. He ran into the cloud, lifted Sua's limp body, and carried her back to their cave. His eyes burned and his lungs felt like they were on fire, but he kept moving. In the cave, he set her down gently. Sua's normally blue skin had turned pale gray. Her breathing was shallow. "She needs medical treatment," Jan said. "The gas has damaged her respiratory system." Tahoe checked their supplies. "We don't have the right medicine." "What about the emergency beacon?" John asked. "The solar flare damaged it," Tahoe said, showing them the broken device. "We can't call for help." Jin thought quickly. During our training, Professor Molo mentioned that a plant grows in the volcanic areas of Nixia. It produces a compound that can treat chemical burns and respiratory damage. "The red moss," Jan confirmed, body pulsing with worried light. "But it only grows in the hottest zones, near active lava flows. The temperatures there would kill most species." "Not us," Jin said, looking at Tahoe. "We can handle more heat than you can." Tahoe nodded. "We'll go. Jen, stay with Suha and keep her stable." The two humans packed water and basic tools, then set out toward the volcano that dominated the horizon. The journey was difficult. The terrain became more treacherous as they climbed higher, with sharp rocks cutting through their boots and hot ash falling from the sky. After hours of climbing, they reached an area where the ground glowed red with heat. Jin could feel his suit's cooling system working hard to keep him alive. "There." Tahoe pointed to patches of crimson growth clinging to rocks near a bubbling lava pool. "The red moss." Jin carefully collected several handfuls, storing them in a sealed container. Just as they finished, a massive rumble shook the mountain. Rocks began falling around them. "Run!" Tahoe shouted. They sprinted down the slope as a wave of fresh lava poured from a new crack in the mountain. The heat was intense, melting parts of their suits. Jin felt blisters forming on his back, but he kept running. They made it to safer ground, both breathing hard and in pain. "Burns," Tahoe gasped, looking at Jin's damaged suit. "2nd degree, maybe worse." "Yours too," Jin said. "But we got the moss. Let's get back." The return journey was even harder. Both humans were injured, tired, and running low on water. But they pushed on, thinking of Suha slowly dying in the cave. When they finally reached their shelter, Jan floated out to meet them. "You made it," the crystalline being exclaimed. "But you're injured." "Never mind us," Jin said, handing over the container of red moss. "Help Suha first." Jan quickly processed the moss into a paste, following instructions stored in their knowledge database. They applied it to Suha's skin and created a mist for her to breathe. Within hours, Suha's color began to return. By morning, she was awake and recovering. "You went to the volcano for me?" she asked weakly when Jin told her what happened. "Of course," Jin said. "That's what teammates do." "But the temperature there, the toxic gases," Suha blinked in confusion. "My species would die instantly in those conditions." "We're a bit more heat-resistant," Tahoe said, showing his bandaged arms. "Got some burns, but we'll heal." "Now I truly understand," Jan said, floating closer to the humans. "You risk death to prevent death. You endure damage to your bodies that would destroy others. This is why they call you immortal. Jin shook his head. We're not immortal. We die too. We just. A distant explosion cut him off. They rushed to the cave entrance and saw a huge cloud of dust rising from the valley below. What was that? Sua asked. Jin used their viewfinder to zoom in on the area. It's another team. Looks like a landslide hit their camp. Tahoe adjusted the viewfinder. That's Doran's team. They're in trouble. Without discussion, Jin and Tahoe began packing emergency supplies. You can't be serious, Sua said. You're already injured. Going down there would be too dangerous. They need help, Jin said simply. As they prepared to leave, Jin realized that this was the final test, not just of survival, but of what it truly meant to be human. On Earth, running toward danger to help others wasn't considered special. Out here, among the stars, it was just one more reason why humans were both feared and respected by the rest of the galaxy. We'll be back soon, he told their alien friends. Keep the shelter warm. Jin and Tahoe stepped out into the harsh landscape, ready to once again prove why humans were called the Immortal Deathworlders. Jin and Tahoe carefully made their way down the steep rocky slope toward the massive dust cloud where Doran's team had been hit by the landslide. Their burns still hurt, and they were tired from their journey to the volcano, but they moved quickly. We should reach them in about an hour, Tahoe said, checking the small map device on his wrist. If they're still alive, Jin added quietly. The terrain grew more difficult as they descended. Sharp rocks cut into their already damaged boots. Hot gas vents released clouds of steam that made it hard to see. Twice they had to change direction to avoid acid pools that bubbled with dangerous chemicals. When they finally reached the landslide area, the scene was worse than they expected. Huge boulders had crashed down from the cliff above, crushing the team's shelter. 3 members of Doran's team stood nearby, looking lost and afraid. Doran himself was trapped under a large rock, only his upper body visible. Help has arrived, Jin called out as they approached. The alien team members turned in surprise. Humans? You came for us, one of them asked, their translator making the voice sound shaky. Of course, Tahoe said. What happened? The ground shook and the cliff collapsed, explained another team member. Doran pushed 2 of us out of the way, but he was caught. We can't move the rock. Our strength is not sufficient. Jin knelt beside Doran. The alien leader was conscious, but clearly in pain. His scaled skin had lost its bright red color and was now a dull brown. My legs are crushed, Doran said weakly. My species cannot survive such injuries for long. Jin examined the rock pinning Doran down. It was huge, at least 500 pounds. On Earth, it would take several strong humans to move it. We need a lever, Jin said to Tahoe. Find a strong pole or something we can use. Tahoe searched the wreckage of the shelter and found a long metal support beam. This might work, he said, bringing it over. They positioned the beam under the edge of the rock and found a smaller stone to use as a fulcrum. On 3, we push down as hard as we can, Jin told Tahoe. 1, 2, 3. Both humans put all their weight and strength on the lever. The rock shifted slightly. More, Jin grunted through clenched teeth. They pushed harder. Jin felt like his arms would break. His back burned where his suit had melted. But he didn't stop. Slowly, the massive rock lifted a few inches. Pull him out, Jin shouted to the alien team members. 2 of them carefully dragged Doran free while Jin and Tahoe held the rock up. As soon as Doran was clear, they let the rock crash back down. Jin and Tahoe fell to their knees, gasping for breath. The aliens stared at them in silence. How did you do that? One finally asked. The rock mass exceeds the lifting capability of your species. Adrenaline, Tahoe explained between deep breaths. Human bodies can temporarily exceed normal limits when necessary. Jin checked Doran's injuries. The alien's legs were badly crushed, with a strange blue liquid leaking from the wounds. "He needs medical attention," Jin said. "We have some supplies, but not enough for injuries this severe." "Our emergency beacon is destroyed," said one of Doran's teammates. "Ours too," Tahoe said. "But we have shelter in our cave. We should take him there until rescue comes." Together, they made a stretcher from parts of the damaged shelter. Jin and Tahoe carried Doran, taking turns with the other aliens. The journey back up the slope was slow and painful. Twice they had to stop and hide from acid rain that fell suddenly from the dark purple sky. When they finally reached the cave, Suha and Jen were shocked to see them return with the injured aliens. "You actually brought them back?" Suha asked, her forearms moving in surprise. "They needed help," Jin said simply. Jian floated over to examine Doran. "His life force is fading. His species cannot regenerate damaged tissue like humans can." "What about the red moss?" Tahoe suggested. "Could it help him too?" "It might reduce the pain," Jan said, "but it cannot repair this kind of damage." Jin thought hard. "What about a blood transfusion?" "Human blood has extra healing properties compared to most species." "That would kill him faster," Suha explained. "Your blood would be toxic to his system." They did what they could to make Doran comfortable, cleaning his wounds and using the red moss to ease his pain. The other aliens huddled together, watching the humans work with a mixture of fear and respect. As night fell, the temperature dropped rapidly. The cave grew cold, and they had limited fuel for the heating unit. Jin and Tahoe gave their thermal blankets to the injured alien, keeping only thin emergency sheets for themselves. "Why are you helping us like this?" Doran asked weakly. "We were rivals." "On Earth," Jin explained, "we learned that survival often depends on helping each other. Humans are strong alone, but stronger together." "Is that another reason they call you immortal?" Doran asked. "Because you live on through the ones you save." Jin had never thought about it that way. Maybe so. For 5 more days, they all lived together in the cave. Their combined supplies were barely enough. The humans took the smallest portions of food and water, and they handled all the dangerous tasks like collecting fuel and treating Doran's wounds. On the morning of the 6th day, Jan suddenly vibrated with excitement. "I sense electromagnetic signatures approaching. The rescue ships are coming." They all moved to the cave entrance and saw 3 large ships descending from the sky. One landed on the plateau near their cave. Administrator Lono stepped out, looking genuinely surprised to find both teams together. "What happened here?" he asked. "Our sensors showed 2 separate teams in one location." Jin explained everything. The toxic gas, the journey to the volcano, the landslide, and the rescue. Lono's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "In 15 years of running this exercise, I have never seen anything like this. Most teams barely survive on their own, let alone risk everything for rivals." Medical teams took Doran and the other injured students to the ships. Before they lifted off, Doran reached out a clawed hand to Jin. "My people have always feared Deathworlders," he said. "Now I understand we should be grateful for them instead." 2 days later, all surviving students had been rescued from Nixia. The exercise, meant to last 3 weeks, had been cut short due to the solar flare damage. Back at Sunspire Academy, Jin and Tahoe spent 3 days in the medical bay, recovering from their burns, cuts, dehydration, and exhaustion. When they were finally released, they found the main hall of the academy filled with students and teachers, waiting for them. "What's going on?" Jin whispered to Tahoe. Administrator Lono stood at the center of the hall. "Today we honor exceptional courage and compassion," he announced. "The actions of our human students have changed how we view Deathworlders forever." Suha and Jan came forward, holding something between them. "We made these for you," Suha said, her voice full of emotion. They handed Jin and Tahoe special badges. Each one showed a human silhouette against Earth's image. Words in multiple languages circled the design, but the English read, Immortal not in years, but in spirit. The Confederation Science Council has started a new research program. Lono explained. They will study human biology and psychology to help improve the resilience of all species. And next year, Sunspire Academy will welcome 15 new human students. After the ceremony, Jin found Jian waiting for him in the hallway. I have been thinking about what makes humans different, the crystalline being said. It is not just your strong bodies or your ability to heal. What is it then? Jin asked. On your most dangerous world, you learned something most species never needed to learn, Jian said. You learned to face death so often that you stopped fearing it. And that has made you truly immortal in the ways that matter most. Jin smiled. 3 months ago, he had arrived at Sunspire Academy, feeling like an outsider, a strange creature from a deadly planet that other species feared. Now he understood that Earth's harshness had given humans a gift that the rest of the galaxy desperately needed. The name Immortal Deathworlders was not just a label. It was the truth about humanity's unique place in the stars. Jin looked down at his new badge and felt proud of what it represented. Next time, he told Jian, when we go back to Nixia, I'll teach you how to climb a volcano. Jin's crystalline body flashed with colors that Jin now recognized as laughter. I will watch from a very safe distance, my immortal friend. As they walked together down the hallway of Sunspire Academy, Jin realized that being human meant something new and special out here among the stars. The very things that had threatened his species on Earth, the dangers, the hardships, the constant struggle, had forged humans into something the galaxy had never seen before. And now, the Immortal Deathworlders would share their gift with the universe.